On this week's episode of the Best of Johnston County Podcast, our guest is Neal Isaacs of VR Brokers of the Triangle. Neal is a business broker who helps buy and sell businesses for small business owners every day. We talk about what does a business broker do and how it differs from being a real estate broker. We talk about the things that make businesses more attractive to potential buyers, how long it takes you to possibly sell your small business, and we also talk about the importance of networking and marketing yourself and your small business to other businesses that might be looking to buy your business. So listen in.
Welcome to another episode of Best of Johnston County, brought to you by Breeden Law Office. Our host, Jonathan Breeden, an experienced family lawyer with a deep connection to the community, is ready to take you on a journey through the area that he has called home for over 20 years. Whether it's a deep dive into the love locals have for the county or unraveling the complexities of family law, Best of Johnston County presents an authentic slice of this unique community.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Best of Johnston County Podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Breeden. And on today's episode, we have Neal Isaacs with VR Brokers of the Triangle. Neal helps buy and sell businesses every day. And today we're going to talk about what makes a business more attractive and more valuable, what buyers are looking for, and how you can make your business better so that it would be more attractive and more valuable to a possible buyer. And it really starts with planning and planning early. But before we get to that, I would like to invite you to like, follow, and subscribe to the Best of Johnston County Podcast, wherever you're seeing it, whether it be on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, TikTok, LinkedIn, Twitter, or any of the other Best of Johnston County podcast social media channels, so that you'll be made aware of future episodes of the Best of Johnston County. The Best of Johnston County podcast comes out every single Monday, and now we've had well over 50 episodes. We're into our second year, and we've had a lot of great guests. So go back and listen to some of the previous guests that we've had on the podcast, including County Commissioner Chairman Butch Lauder, congressional candidate, now Congressman Brad Knott, County Economic Development Group Director Chris Johnson, County Parks and Rec Director Adrian O'Neill, local dentist Tim Sims, Woody Bailey, talking about local IT services and computers for your offices. Tons of great information on the previous episodes, and there's going to be many, many great guests to come. So if you love Johnston County as much as I do, this is the podcast for you. Welcome, Neal.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, man, we go way back. This is going to be like old home days.
Absolutely.
So anyway, tell the audience who you are and what you do currently, and then we'll go back and talk about some of the many things you've done before.
Sure. So my name is Neal Isaacs. I own VR Business Brokers. We're a business brokerage firm. We sell other people's businesses. I like to say we empower owners with their options for exit. Been doing that. I'm looking at a decade of being a business broker. Hard to believe.
That is hard to believe.
Yeah.
You know, the thing is, you don't age, right? I'm aging. You don't age.
We're all aging, John.
You just don't look like you're aging.
Oh, well, yeah.
I mean, you know, you look basically the same you did when I met you.
I'm turning 70 next year. You're turning 70. And I just, I drink a protein shake every day and I work out a little bit.
Oh my goodness.
That's not 70. True. I'm 46.
So anyway, and I guess when we met, you owned, for people that lived in this area a while, the aquatic store.
Yes. So here we are. It's 4042 Joco. I moved here in 2003. I was a marine biologist, Ripley's Aquarium, the Smokies. I was a shark diver, and I found a business for sale in Johnston County. And I told my shark diver boss, I'm going to quit and go buy this business. And he's like, I'd kind of like you to stay, but I mean, we got 1 million people that want this job. And so I moved down here. I bought this business and I ran it for 5.5 years. I like to joke, I'm one of 2 guys that sold a clam in Garner in Johnston County for $500.
So because you had all kinds of stuff. It was you had aquariums and
I sold Nemo and Dory.
Right?
That movie Finding Nemo came out in 2000 and I opened in 2003 and I rode that wave. That was the perfect movie. But yeah, clownfish, Nemo fish, the clams were Tridacta maxima, corals, shrimp, invertebrates. Marine ornamentals is what we were selling. It was
Oh
wild.
oh my goodness. My business coach, Richard James, was in the pet supply business, and they did some of the aquarium type stuff.
Yeah.
And, in that same time frame. And ultimately, the invention of Amazon and some of the online retailers really made it hard for his sort of mom and pop shop in Pennsylvania
Absolutely.
to make a living. So he had to go do something else.
And that's something I think we'll touch on today is, businesses come and go and they change over time. And I don't know that if I hadn't sold it, I don't know that it would have been a viable product in today's world of everyone ordering on Amazon.
Well, that's true. That's true. So then you transitioned to selling Time Warner cable ads, I think. Was it ads?
I sold the business in 2003, and I remember my headspace was like, okay, I'm too young to be president. I'm too old to be an Olympic athlete. Like, what's next for Neal? That's where I was at 30 years old when I sold my first business. But I did a couple things, but I ended up, for the longest period before I started their business brokers, being a media sales rep. So I was the guy that would say, hey, do you want to be on ESPN? Do you want to be on Home and Garden networks? Like, let's create some content and put you in the right spot. I did that for 5+ years and learned. That was really my first taste of corporate America type stuff.
Right. And, and you and I talked about doing some different things back then. I was, I couldn't do the business that I had at that point. And so, I couldn't figure out exactly who I was going to market to. And if it actually worked, how was I going to get the work done? Now I'm looking back into that kind of stuff for my business with these sort of direct-to-consumer streaming ads, and we may actually get into some of those in 2025.
Cool. But another business that's changed dramatically over time, and you've got to adapt to stay competitive.
No, well, that's true. That's true because of the way that now they can really target the sets that are seeing these different things, particularly with the streaming ones, maybe not with traditional cable, but with the streaming things. It's, for those of y'all listening, I spend, and Neal does too, spend a lot of time talking to people in marketing and stuff. The things that the world knows about you right now and the way you can be targeted and how it's changed with AI over the last 5 years is fascinating and scary at the same time.
Absolutely.
Because I learn about these things as people try to sell me different ways to market to my ideal client. And I'm like, you can do that? And they're like, yes. And I'm like, that's scary.
Yeah.
Like they know that much about you that they can really target these ads, and then the ads follow you around the internet, and
I'm so glad I had that experience in marketing, because marketing is at the core of every small business. How do we find more customers? And it has progressed breakneck speed since I got out close to a decade ago. But just to see kind of the idea of reach and frequency, just understanding how marketing works, that was critical. That's part of my path. And the leap from selling advertising space into being a business broker, I remember that very clearly because it was starting to get kind of easy. And I met some folks that were there and they were like kind of looking at how much more till I retire. And I thought I could become one of those folks. And at the same time, I had gotten to where there were a couple of clients that I had they were prospects and then they were customers and then they were friends. And I was getting some FaceTime with some legit business entrepreneurs that I was like, wow, this is amazing. And their problems were so much more significant than mine. I remember the biggest problem I had is maybe someone's TV commercial doesn't run. That's not a big problem. But these folks were we've got pallets and pallets of merch to move. Everything you see here is going out tonight. We got more stuff coming in. And I thought, man, that is so cool. So I started to get that hunger to start a business. And then I kind of explored a bunch of stuff. And I just love the business brokerage piece of it. I just thought
you'd already owned a small business.
Yeah.
And then you went to work for one of the largest companies in the United States, in Time Warner, which is now Spectrum.
Yeah.
And then you went back into owning your own business.
And I thought about being a real estate agent, but I'm a guy that sold tropical fish. I don't do normal jobs. And that's where business brokerage, which is kind of the redheaded stepchild of real estate, seemed to be a good fit. I really liked the fact that people don't even know that business brokers exist. That's a big part of what we do is education.
That's true.
And so we have these conversations with business owners what's the plan? Where's all this going? You help people with estate planning and family matters. They're thinking about the end for themselves. Hopefully they are. A lot of them aren't. But people should be doing the same thing for their business, and they're not.
And I would agree 100%. And, I'm fairly active in the community here, and you're the only business broker that I know personally in this community. I know there are others. I know other business brokers in the business broker of selling law firm world, because you meet them at conferences, you listen to them on podcasts and stuff like that. But I think people don't always think about, when or how or should I sell my business.
Yeah. Yes. And that's typically how business brokerage goes, is you have local specialists, and then you have market specialists, and then you have industry specialists. So there are legal brokers, accounting brokers, dental brokers that only sell dentists or attorneys or what have you. But for a Main Street business, your buyer, the research indicates, and we publish these research guides every quarter because we like to stay on top of the latest, but the research indicates your buyer is probably within 20 miles. If it's a business less than, say, $1 million or so. So it helps to have a local broker. And that's we serve any business owner that makes money basically in a triangle.
Okay. So if I owned a business and I was thinking that I might want to sell it, how soon should I start planning?
On day one. This is what people don't do, but the earlier the better. Start with the end in mind, right? If worst case scenario, you end up with a business that runs better without you if you do some planning to make it transferable. I mean, ultimately what business buyers are looking for is they just want a business that makes money, that has some type of process and some people, and that isn't 100% owner dependent. So start planning for that, and then you just have more options for exit.
Right. And so for those of us or those people that did not start with the thought that they were going to sell it, I would say my experience, we've worked with a couple of people, even though we do family law, that have sold businesses as part of their divorce. You need at least a 2 or 3 year runway because mainly you got to get the books right. Yeah. We talk about the systems in a minute, but there are a lot of small businesses where the books are not on the up and up, at least as far as the IRS would be concerned.
Yeah. So I'll answer your previous question a little bit more succinctly. The look back period is like 3 to 5 years. Someone's going to buy your business. They're going to look at your books. They're going to study the last 3, maybe 5 years. But what they care most about is the trailing 12 months, trailing 18 months. You will be judged by your P&L, trailing 12-month P&L. And to your point, you can only really fix that. It takes time to cement that. And from a banking perspective, like if your buyer's going to get a loan, they're primarily looking at the tax returns. The tax returns are carved in concrete. So you could change those, but you don't want to. So if you don't like the current status of your business, you're looking at years to correct it, to change the financial statement, to improve your financial statement.
Right. And they need to be correct. And a lot of small businesses run their entire lives through their business, which they aren't probably really supposed to do, but they do. And so that can make the numbers a little skewed for what they should be or not. And some businesses deal in cash, and maybe that cash doesn't make it to the bank, but all of that stuff, if you're looking to sell a business, it needs to be on the up and up.
It does. And actually you can, I'm not an accountant, but I have a lot of great accountant centers of influence, referral partners and financial advisors that have ways to mitigate tax. It's tax mitigations, right? People don't want to pay taxes. Understandable. And you don't have to pay more taxes than you're allowed to. So following the rules and using the ways that are available to save taxes is better than, I build decks and I made too much money this year, so I'm just going to put a really nice deck on my house and call that cost of goods sold. That's an example of a way to save taxes that's probably going to devalue your business. If that was put into a retirement account, if that was put into some type of depreciation, there's other ways to do it. That's what we want our clients to talk to their accountants about.
Well, and the other thing a business buyer is going to be looking for is it's going to be looking at sort of the net profits or the total owner's benefit of the business,
Absolutely.
Which is not always, a net profit, but there's, there are other things. Owners can pay themselves a W-2 wage.
You can pay their kids a W-2
You can
wage.
pay your kids a W-2 wage if they work for you.
There's all kinds of correct ways to do it. That's what we want to encourage business owners to educate themselves with, working with their team, and to do it correctly. Because I've heard one banker call it stealing from the business, which literally you're taking the money, you're not reporting it, you're breaking the law, you're taking your future consideration of sale today. It's a short-sighted, but if you don't know how, it seems like, I've got money here, why do I report it? But you're really stealing from your future.
Well, and if you're going to be a small business owner and you're going to want to sell, you're going to have some sort of operating system that is repeatable for the owner who's going to buy it. I know you're a fan of EOS. I am as well. We've Todd Bailey, an EOS implementer. He's going to be on this podcast and may have already been on when this episode runs. I don't exactly know which order they're going to run, but talking about that program as a system by which to organize your business. How do you see that system or any system help? What does it do for a small business?
So let's go back to my origin story. When I was right across the road selling tropical fish, selling Nemo and Dory, I mean, I could barely take a vacation. If I left for a week, we didn't have cell phones back then, but I'd be worried. I'd be calling my manager. I was lucky to have a manager, but I'd get back and have to put everything back together. To simplify the great work that Todd Bailey and other EOS implementers do, it's like, hey, how dependent is your business on you? Can you take a vacation? That's a question we ask business owners. How long does it take for your business to fall apart when you're not there? Because every business buyer, here's the secret. Are you ready for the secret, John?
I am. Love the secret.
Every business buyer wants easy money. They want to buy something that makes money and they don't have to work. Right? That's what every business buyer wants. We know as business owners that doesn't exist. But the more we can make our businesses less owner dependent, the more we can empower our teams and just put the right money into payroll and other things so that it's more than just us, the more value there is. And I think EOS and other systems like that can really help owners focus on that.
No doubt. And Gino Wickman came up with EOS, and the first book in the series is Traction. And then I think the next book is Get a Grip. And, and they talk about getting the right people in the right seats with a vision and a core value and implementing and everybody having a responsibility. And, we don't have time in this podcast to go through it. You can do hours and hours. You listen to the Todd Bailey episode. It's really good. Read those books. Those are well. But ultimately, I think that's where I have seen businesses fail when it came time to sell, in an estate plan situation or even in a divorce, is that it was too owner dependent and there was nobody else there that could do it because the owner was doing all the work in the business, had not worked enough on the business, so it was not repeatable or scalable.
100%. And it's natural that happens because as entrepreneurs, we make something out of nothing. We are responsible for getting it from 0 to 1. That's a Peter Thiel book. But ultimately, it takes a different skill set to scale up. So it's hard for entrepreneurs to let go of how to do it, but they have to empower others. But what it means for the community, the Johnston County community, is you build a business, people start coming there, they love to come there, and then none of us are going to last forever. But what if you could build a business that wasn't about you, that had a team that ran it? Now you have a succession plan for your business. Now, after maybe you aren't available to be there, or maybe you just want to do something else. Now the business can continue to serve the community. And when the businesses that we sell, the employees stay employed, they feed their families. The customers can continue to use their services. The government can continue to tax the business. I mean, all these are great things as opposed to, I ran it for a little while and then I just kind of ran out of steam and I couldn't carry it anymore. So it ended.
Well, that's a good point.
Have family law questions? Need guidance to navigate legal challenges? The compassionate team at Breeden Law Office is here to help. Visit us at www.breedenfirm.com for practical advice, resources, or to book a consultation. Remember, when life gets messy, you don't have to face it alone.
So how do you and your team at VR Brokers serve business owners who want to sell?
Yeah. So typically when we get a call, it's somebody who's been thinking about selling for a long time. We know when we get that call, they've debated on even having that first conversation. So we start with, hey, everything's confidential. That's another thing that's different than real estate. You don't want your employees to know. You don't want your landlord to know. This is exactly what I was thinking when I started to sell my business. We have processes to keep this confidential. Let's start with the financial piece. I know your business is more than just the numbers, but let's start with the numbers to get kind of a range. Once we have a range, and EOS is really good about this, we can improve parts of the business to get to the top of the range. But let's start with evaluation. Let's see what it's worth today. Let's see if that aligns with your goals. And what it typically works out with I'll just use a round number of $1 million based on your financials, based on other businesses that have sold like yours. You could get $1 million for your business if you sold right now. Does that work for you? And then people say, yeah, I need to retire. That's not enough. Or that sounds okay. Usually they want more. But once in a while they'll say, wow, I can't believe I can get $1 million for my business. But that's the beauty of being the owner. You get to decide what to do next. It's kind of a pick your own path thing. If they're not happy with it, then we talk about, well, this is why it's worth $1 million, and these are things you can do to improve it. And so that next time we do this, maybe it'll be worth $2 million, $5 million, or $10 million.
Right. And so what are some of those things that you most commonly recommend to increase the value of the business?
Well, revenue. I mean, it's pretty obvious, but more revenue, if it's managed well, will inevitably result in higher cash flow. But at the same time, we look at, are they spending the money on the right things, right? So we talked about not spending enough on payroll. We'll look at how much the owner is spending on payroll, and oftentimes they're not spending enough. They may have really high margins, but they're keeping all of it for themselves, and that's why they're kind of limiting the growth of their business. So that's called benchmarking. Are you spending the right amounts on the right category of your expenses? And that's all on the financial side. And then on the personnel side, building that team, making sure that people are in the right places. One thing I will say is I'm not a huge fan of when owners start giving equity to their team members. I think there's ways to do it, but we do come into situations where the owner says, I like my manager so much I gave him some equity. Now I want to sell the business. And we're like, well, now your manager's involved in this sale. Like, bring him in here. Let's let him know you're trying to sell the company. So preserving equity is one of those things that we talk with the business owners about. And then just processes and procedures, documenting everything. Back to that idea of, can you take a vacation? To take it out of your head, put it in an employee manual or policies and procedures. That's the hard work, the blocking and tackling, but that really does translate to value in the long term.
Okay, well, that's cool. So how do you market these businesses when it is technically largely confidential?
It is. So that's where it gets tricky. And as an intermediary, we put a code name on the business. So you'll see on the businesses that we have for sale, it's called, plumbing company, Triangle Market, $4 million of revenue, $800,000 of EBITDA. It's a teaser, if you will. And then we have hundreds of people that say, which plumbing company is that? And we say, right this way, here's an NDA, tell me about you. Do you have any business inquiring about this business? And if it makes sense, then we go to the next stage, which is, you understand this is confidential, you understand the employees don't know, this is the name of the business. We call it a confidential business review, a very detailed report that we're very protective of. We want to get it to the buyers that have been screened. We don't want that to go out to the general public.
Okay, and I've looked at buying other law firms, so I know how that works. I ultimately chose not to because I felt like my time would be better spent working to scale and make my office better than trying to convert somebody else's office. And I think that ended up being the right decision for me at the time. Not saying I wouldn't buy one in the future, but
that's one reason I'm not a huge fan of the specialty practices, because you're trying to blend that culture. It's got to be the perfect fit to buy another dentist, to buy another attorney firm. You've built your practice a certain way that your practitioner you're buying out may have a different philosophy.
Correct.
The businesses that we sell, it's back to owner dependency. It's less of a factor there.
Right. So does the buyer pay you or does the seller? Because I know how real estate works. And they sort of, the seller pays both sides. A commission to both brokers. But how does yours work?
So we represent sellers only. The buyers are our customers. And one interesting piece about business brokerage is there's very little buyer representation. So all buyers are our customers. Rarely do they have representation. It's different in other markets. In Florida, you go to Florida and it's very much like real estate. There's business buyer brokers. They'll get you in a car and go visit businesses to buy, and it's more set up for co-brokering. In North Carolina, there's very little of that. So our business buyers are our customers, and we're working with them, explaining, I represent the seller, but I can help you in service to my client to empower you to get through this deal. Here's a great attorney. Here's a great CPA. Give me your diligence list. I can share material facts, but I can't tell you the lowest amount that the seller will accept. That's where my agency, I have a fiduciary responsibility. So we're doing, I don't want to say twice the work, but we're working on both sides in service to the seller client. And buyers are unrepresented.
That is
in many cases.
That's scary to me.
It's much harder to buy a business than to sell a business. There's no doubt about that.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that is scary.
It's scary.
But hey, that's
You got to
the
put
way.
on your big boy pants to
Yeah,
buy a
right.
business,
No,
right?
that's true. That's
Yeah.
true. I mean, and sometimes it works out and
Yeah.
sometimes it doesn't. So, well, that's cool. I know you're working on becoming a certified exit planner.
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah. So I'm an intermediary. I'm a transaction agent. And you asked, like, how long do people need to prepare to sell a business? Typically, when people come in, if they're like, I want to sell within a couple of years, then we'll start that conversation, because we know it takes about a year to sell, and it takes about a year to go from maybe I'll sell to get me out of here. So that's kind of a 2-year window. And after they sell, we want them to be successful, but we're so focused on that transaction, we're kind of on to the next deal. With a CEPA, Certified Exit Planning Advisor, it's a longer window. So now we're partnering with the financial advisors, the accountants, other CEPAs actually, to do more long-term planning and to just dive deeper into the financial planning, the accounting planning. It's more about preparing for the exit than the actual exit itself. It's very complementary to what we do as transaction agents.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, let's transition here and briefly talk a little bit about, your work in the community. You are almost everywhere. And I mean, you're the biggest cheerleader for the town of Garner that I know, and the Garner Chamber of Commerce. Talk about your involvement with the Garner Chamber of Commerce and what you do for them, and how you see that chambers can help other businesses.
Yeah. So why do I network? I'm a business intermediary. I sell other people's businesses. Most people don't even want to talk about that. In similar ways to a divorce attorney, people aren't going to say, hey, I want a divorce. Hey, I want to sell my business. They want to talk about that, but they don't want to talk about it at the same time. So my networking in the events that I do and the work that I do with the chamber, it's community service. And it's also a way for me just to be present in the business community, to serve others. So, we do coffee events every month. Hey, business owners, you want to meet other business owners? Come get a coffee on us. We hosted at Lorraine's, which is a Garner business. My work with the chamber, I've been a part of the chamber, even back to when I was selling advertising. And when I started this business, I said, I'm just going to go all in with the chamber. It's a place for business owners to connect with each other. I like that. I was an ambassador for like 5-6 years. I've served on the board for 2 or 3 years now. I'm on the executive level of the board. When you take a role like that, whether it's chamber, Rotary, QAnon, any type of service level thing, it's a little bit odd because you're in the room with the people you want to do business with, but you're not shaking them down to do business. But you're rubbing shoulders with them and your peers with them. And you're all in this service mindset. Inevitably, you're going to build relationships so that you can do business in the future, and you'll get referrals from them. And I like that service mindset. And I just think the chamber is a great organization, and it helps when business owners start, especially. They need a lot of help, and the chamber serves a great role there. It also has a great partnership with the town of Garner. It's an amazing partnership. And the mayor of Garner comes to a lot of our events and stuff like that. And that's only because of the service that we do, and because he's a great mayor and everything. So it all kind of ties together.
No doubt. And I enjoy being involved with the Garner Chamber of Commerce and the Clayton Chamber of Commerce and Triangle East Chamber of Commerce, and meeting other businesses and sharing information and sort of being a connector. You know what I mean? When I think of Neal Isaacs, I think of Neal Isaacs as a connector. A lot of people, you can help people connect. I do the same thing.
Yeah.
Between the two of us, there's not a lot of people in the business community around 4042 or Garner that we do not know.
Absolutely.
And that's just, some of that is, I'm an extrovert and I like to be around people. Some of that is just being a resource in the community by being able to connect people. And I know you do a great job of that.
Yeah.
And I try to as well.
Not everybody needs legal services today. And not everybody needs to sell a business today. But everybody wants that next connection for their own business, for their own personal stuff. And we can provide that today. That's the fun part.
No doubt. Well, the last question we ask everybody on this podcast, I know you own a business in Johnston County and you're working on several deals selling Johnston County businesses. What do you love most about Johnston County?
I love the breakneck growth. So when I owned Aquatica, and that was a long time ago, I opened that in 2023 and it's recording this 2024, so 21 years ago. There's a different landscape out there. All the stuff that's happening. I mean, the 4042 market in particular is like the fastest growing part of Johnston County. And a lot of people have concerns about the traffic and the planning or what have you. But I love the fact that it's just always a great opportunity. If there's a business owner and they have a business here, it's kind of hard to mess it up, right? You have a lot of great opportunity because there's more people coming here all the time.
It does help to be in a growing market,
Yeah.
you know, and it's allowed me to grow my business over the
Yeah.
years. And we do provide a great service here, and we do work very hard. But it does help that there's just more people to provide our services
Yeah.
to every single year as this area continues to grow. And that leads to more young families and more
Yeah.
young families, you know, breaking up for whatever reason
Yeah.
and that need our family law services here, and more people that need wills and
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
It's
So I get
opportunity.
it.
I
It's
love the opportunity of Johnston County. And I think we've got a long way to go of continued growth. And I can't wait to see where it goes.
Well, if somebody wanted to reach out to you about VR brokers and
Sure.
what you do or your certified exit planning, how would they do that?
Yeah. So I run a YouTube channel. John, you're talking with a D-list YouTube celebrity today. I don't know if you're aware of that, but I'm on YouTube at Raleigh Business Broker, and I do educational content for business owners, business buyers, and other business brokers at Raleigh Business Broker on YouTube. People can reach out to me, sell, S-E-L-L, like I want to sell my business, sell at vrbiztriangle.com. And VRBiz Triangle, VR is the firm. VRBiztriangle.com is our website. We can learn more about us.
Cool. Well, that's great. Well, we would like to thank Neal Isaacs for being our guest today on the Best of Johnston County podcast. As we mentioned earlier, if this is your first time listening, feel free to like, follow, and subscribe to this podcast wherever you're seeing it so that you'll be aware of future episodes of the Best of Johnston County podcast. If you'd also give us a 5-star review down at the bottom of where you're seeing this podcast so that more people become aware. And would you tag us in your Instagram stories, the Best of Johnston County podcast? That will also raise our visibility in the community. Until next time, I'm your host, Jonathan Breeden.
That's the end of today's episode of Best of Johnston County, a show brought to you by the trusted team at Breeden Law Office. We thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to sharing more interesting facets of this community next week. Every story, every viewpoint adds another thread to the rich tapestry of Johnston County. If the legal aspects highlighted raise some questions, help is just around the corner at www.breedenfirm.com.